You guys all done shoveling yet? Or that snowblower out of gas? Yeah. What a weekend, huh? We just checking in here. Welcome to this week's episode of Log Talk with Pertner Outdoors. And yeah, this is Sunday night. I'm whooped. I know the whole family's whooped. The kids are whooped. Wife's whooped. We had a blast today out in the snow. Yesterday we got pounded out here with lake effect, probably a couple foot. I know some areas just to the west of us here over in the Holland Hills and Colden area. I heard they got 4 feet yesterday, so pretty sizable lake effect snow event that we weren't really anticipating, which is always the most fun. So yesterday did a lot of cleaning up of snow, and today woke up to near 0 degree temperatures, and very quickly once that sun came up, we got up into the low 30s, and just an absolutely perfect day. Had a riot over at my in-laws. We were sledding, snowmobiling, driving the side-by-side, had a couple sodas, stood around a bonfire. Those are the winter days that you dream about. So great time today, and I hope you all had the opportunity to get out there and do something in the outdoors this weekend. Looks like a lot of people are having a great time ice fishing this year. I wish I had the time, but just can't do it all. So awesome to see everybody out there getting after it and having a good time. This week's episode is with Hunter and Trevor Brunk from Brunk Outdoors. Pretty interesting story about how we met these guys, so you'll hear that once we get rolling with the discussion. But really just didn't really have a big plan for what we were going to talk about in the show, but we decided I've been wanting to get them on here for quite a while, and finally was able to make that happen. But we just kind of shot the breeze, got to know each other a little bit better, and had some fun discussion around social media and managing a YouTube channel, just all that sort of stuff. I found it to be a very interesting discussion. Always love getting to know new people and just talk about things that you don't really anticipate talking about and just letting the conversation flow. So fun discussion here. And then the last thing I'm going to plug before we get rolling is the Shed Fest. So we are a week into the registration for Shed Fest. Off to a great start. We're around 62, I believe, is the number we're at right now. As I mentioned in the Q&A podcast I posted up on Friday night, Saturday morning, my goal is to get to 100. I think that's very doable. So I definitely encourage and hope that everybody can get signed up that's interested in participating. More than anything, as you've heard me say, this is a membership drive for the National Deer Association. So what you need to do to get signed up is head over to pertneroutdoors.com. Links are in all of our social media as well as the podcast notes here. Head over to pertneroutdoors.com. Go to our shop. You'll see the T-shirt. If you purchase a T-shirt, you will automatically be entered into the Shed Fest contest, and you are automatically going to get a 1-year membership to the National Deer Association, and you'll get the T-shirt. So you get the T-shirt, an entry to the contest, and a 1-year membership. So pretty good bang for your buck. I've had a few people ask, what if I just renewed my membership, or what if I have a lifetime membership to the National Deer Association? I'll be up in a second, Bill. Give me a minute. It's book time. Where was I? So if you already have a membership or a lifetime, we can just shoot us a message or put a note on your order and say who you would like the membership to go to. You can gift them. Or if you just have a year-to-year membership with the Deer Association, they will just tack that on and add another year to your membership. So either way, don't get scared away by that. At the end of the day, this is a for fun deal. Just trying to create some interaction on social media. People sharing pictures of their sheds and success that they're having out there in the field. So that's what this is all about. We have some great prizes. The people that are supporting us with this are awesome, and you'll see that in the website breakdown of the shed hunt, who those folks are and who the prizes are from. So head over and check that out. You'll hear me talk about this, the rolling out of it anyway, the registration period up through August. That would be easy, Bill. April 1st, we're going to run open registration up until then. So if you find a giant shed and you want to get in, by all means get in. It's not a like got to get in, and then if I found something already, it's not worth it. Not the point. The point is to get some memberships for National Deer Association. So you get it. I'm done yammering. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting Pert Near Outdoors and supporting the outdoor life that we all live. So good stuff here. Have a great week. Enjoy the outdoors. It's going to be a beautiful week. We're going to be above 20 degrees almost every day. Can't wait. See ya. Feed them. Wash your hands. Why do I keep saying that? Just let it go. Feed them. Hello. Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think of it because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah,
You know,
he's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
What'd you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
Remember the
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. What's up, Trevor?
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. I am wonderful. Nice bear rug.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I've been working from home with COVID the last, probably it's going to be up here in a year. And I was never set up to work from home. So I don't work in a company that's like big into hunting, obviously. But a lot of people found it
don't.
funny.
What do you do?
I am a market analyst for an aerospace and defense company. So, yeah, that's my day job.
Interesting. Yeah, I suppose you can probably... What's up, Hunter? I suppose you can probably do that job pretty easily from home without having to go to an office.
Yeah, it's been nice. It's going to be hard to go back to the office, that's for sure.
You think they'll have you go back?
I think so. It's in the plans, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it's going to be more like a hotel is what I've been hearing too, is if you need to go into the office, you can like rent a space and then you could have a workspace there.
What the hell?
It's kind of weird.
So do you think you're going to do that, or will you have the choice?
I mean, we're slotted to have like an office space, but I don't know. Everything's so up in the air. You don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, Who knows if this thing's ever going to get back to normal, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll introduce you guys, and then I am kind of curious what life is like in the Midwest right now, because it's not New York, and I think a lot of the U.S. might be a little different than it is here in New York. So I have Trevor and Hunter Brunk on with us today from Brunk Outdoors. So welcome, guys. Thanks for jumping on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. How are you, Hunter?
I'm pretty good. Just been running around with my head cut off today. So
yeah.
Well,
you just sit back and relax and enjoy the ride.
Sit down and talk about some hunting.
There you go. But first, what is the vibe in Iowa? You guys are from Iowa, so what's life like there right now? Because I just know what it's been like here in New York for basically the last year, and it's been pretty tight and pretty restrictive. Just curious what life is like in the corn land.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what it's like there either, but I mean, you have to, around the town and stuff when you go into, because we live mostly in the big city for work because we have to have a job, and Hunter's in college at Iowa, so he's down there, and everywhere you go you have to have a mask on, and it's required, but some people don't wear them. um I mean, it's just different. You have to wear a mask everywhere. For a while it was kind of shut down, but I mean, you could still go to the grocery store. But other than that, it's, to be honest, it seemed kind of normal.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can still go everywhere. You just have to wear a mask and have socially distance stickers on the floor to stay so many feet back and
Yeah.
all these things. But yeah, I mean, most companies I don't think are in the office that much. Heidi's going in every couple days to her work, but her company's not even all the way back in there either. So
It's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, New York has been extremely restrictive. We've been hit super hard by the virus, and obviously, the state is very unique in the fact where we have New York City, which drives the numbers of everything, and then the rest of the state, for the most part, is extremely rural. We've got like 3 other main cities, but other than that, it's kind of the country. So, yeah,
yeah,
it's been a weird year, and for people that live in the country, it's even more bizarre because we live our lives socially distanced. So it's really hard to understand the challenges of the city because we don't live there. So it's super hard to grasp all that. So yeah, it's interesting.
there's definitely a different vibe of it though, between like when we're closer to our hunting properties. If you run into town and stuff, like it's just way closer to normal. Yeah, some of the stores make you have to wear masks and stuff, but for the most part, it's way more lax, I would say, than
Yeah.
around here in the bigger cities. So it's probably the same as where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't we get started with enough of that stuff, and hopefully we don't say another word about it.
The depressing stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk fun stuff. So I guess introduce your guys, who you are, where you're from. And I'm interested. I don't really know a whole lot about you guys. We have kind of an interesting way that we met. So I'll tell that
Yeah, you should
story in a
explain
minute.
that.
Do you want me to tell that first?
Yeah, tell them that story, because I think that's like pivotal to this.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So that was 2019, fall of 2019, September. Brian and myself and Danny and Bob and Mr. T were on our way out to Colorado. We had a couple trucks, and those guys were ahead of us, and we're ripping through somewhere in Nebraska. I believe it was during the day. I know the sun was up. You don't really, when you're on those long drives, you don't really know where you are and what time it is. You just know there's a lot of straight, flat roads, and we're coming up on this truck. And I don't know about you guys, but when we're on those trips, like heading out west, there's a portion of people that are driving, whether it's 80 or 70, that are heading out west to hunt elk or mule deer. Like, you just know it. So every truck we go by, we're like, you see a hunting sticker and you're like honking the horn and stuff. And we come up on this truck towing a trailer, and it says, it looks real official. It's got this big sticker on the back that says Brunk Outdoors. And I was sitting in the passenger seat. I think Danny Boy was driving. And so I jumped on the old Instagram and searched Brunk Outdoors, and I'm like, holy shit, here's their Instagram page. So I shot you guys a message like right then and there. And then we started DMing back and forth and stayed in touch pretty much ever since. And just kind of hilarious how we stumbled across each other, but it's pretty easy to make friends with people that are heading in the same direction to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's probably the coolest like encounter on somebody, because I mean, we've been going out to Colorado for, it was 7 years, 6 or 7 years at that point, and you'd see trucks driving by like that, but never have you actually like connected with somebody and like talked to somebody. And that's why I think it's so funny, because I mean, like, you guys had a killer year that year. You guys killed like 2 bulls, was it?
We killed one bull on opening day. Yep. It felt like 2 bulls carrying them out.
Yeah, and I heard you told me one of your guys had that pulmonary edema or something, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know what the actual medical term was for it, but Danny, we ended up being the last day of the trip for everybody. We were up in the mountains, and Danny going to bed the night before, his arm was kind of swelling up, or it was kind of like aching, and he wasn't quite sure what was going on. We've been back in there for 6-7 days, so you don't know if, who knows, you got bit by a bug or, some plants irritating you. And the next morning he woke up and it was really uncomfortable, and his arm was like visibly swollen, but we went out for the morning hunt anyway. And it was like 9:30, quarter to 10, and he came across the radio and he's like, guys, I'm getting kind of freaked out. Like my arm's like really swollen, and I'm going to head back to camp and see what the guys think. So we all met back up there, and we all made the decision to get him off the mountain, which basically ended all of our hunt. And we headed out and got back to town, and went to a small, mountain town hospital emergency room. Turns out that the only thing that they specialized in there is it was like an abortion clinic or something. So actually, this might be Danny dialing in right now, but is this Danny? So I'll just progress. I believe it is him. So we leave that mountain town and we head to the east side of Denver, and we get to it's Brian, Danny, and I. We get to a hospital, or like an urgent care, and he goes into the urgent care, and Brian and I, we go shopping at a local corner store, and we get a phone call from Danny that he has to go to the big hospital in Denver because he's got a serious medical issue. It appears to be a blood clot. So it got real serious real quick there. And so we ended up heading, it'd been pretty much a rigmarole. That day was a long day. I mean, we got up in the morning expecting that we're going to have another couple days in the mountains hunting. And, fast forward to 9:30 at night, and we're admitting him into the emergency room and trying to figure out what in the hell we're going to do now.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, it's funny how you go on these trips and it's like almost we've only gone on 2 big out west trips, and both times stuff happens that you did not anticipate to have happen. And it's pretty hard to like keep yourself in the moment and not get worked up, especially when you're exhausted and been away from home for a long time. So I know Brian and I were not in a good way. We were pissed off. We were frustrated. We didn't know when we were going to get to go home. Brian and I both have young kids, and you're missing your kids, you're missing your wife, and you know that they're wondering when the hell you're going to come home, and we don't know now. So
man,
yeah, it was pretty wild.
Well,
it was
good to hear everything turned out all right. So, because that's always a bad deal.
Yeah. They ended up having to. So he was in the hospital. That was Thursday night. We checked him in. He was there Thursday night, all day Friday, and they had let him go Saturday midday, early afternoon, and he actually beat us home, the rotten bastard, because he actually had to fly. He couldn't drive because the doctor didn't want him sitting still for 24 hours. So So Brian and I hit the road, and we made pretty good time. We got home in 24 hours, just the 2 of us, from Denver, it was a long ride, but Danny got on a plane. But I mean, he had to have surgery and everything. So, trying to figure out medication, and it was messed up. The whole deal it was pretty crazy.
Man, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Like it's stuff you don't really think about, but like you said, stuff can hit the fan fast, and you got to be careful.
So the doctor actually felt that, and if Danny, if that's you there, somebody's on here creeping. I don't know if it's you or somebody else, but the doctor, I believe, felt that it was, it is, there he is. What did the doctor believe that it was that caused that injury, Danny? Was it your backpack riding a certain way, or?
They had actually told me they kind of equated it to like weightlifters, guys that have a lot of muscle, like kind of in their shoulder bicep area. They'll get the same thing a lot just from like pinching and cutting off their nerve kind of between their shoulder and their collarbone. So that was kind of what they had told me, is from that strap being so heavy there, that vein actually goes over your collarbone in that area, and it's like your last rib or something. There's a rib in there. Some people will actually go in and have surgery and take your rib out if it gets too bad.
Wow.
But that's like extreme cases.
Yeah. So are you saying you're strong like a muscle builder or a weightlifter? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, big weightlifter.
Yeah.
I am 12
It
ounces
also-
at a time.
And I don't know about you two guys, but you know, that was the first time we ever went out west. We spent the night in the mountains in a hotel room, acclimated to elevation, had a good meal, and then went up in. And this past trip in 2019, we drove 24 hours straight, got to the trailhead at like 4:00, got out of the truck and straight up the mountain. And I don't think that was not a good decision.
I think
Danny
that's
and
where
Brian
we
were
went
pretty
wrong.
broken.
Yeah, I always
because
feel
we
it.
always go ahead, Hunter.
I always feel it really bad when we do that. Like even setting up camp, I get so dizzy that first day, headaches and stuff. But we never really. I mean, with that said, we usually just kind of dive right into it, to be honest. So usually there's one. We try to get at least to like the mountains to stay overnight, and then we usually go in the morning. But it's not like the elevation that we're gonna actually hunt in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you're staying at 8,000 in a town, and then you're getting up to 9, 10, 11 plus to camp.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's a huge gain, especially flatlanders. You know, we're not used to that. It's
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about like what's the elevation there isn't much, right?
No, it's like
Like
1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
800 feet.
And you don't have a lot of like that's the benefit of here. We do have some solid hills, but we're only at 2,000 feet
Right.
at the highest points. You know, so it's I don't know. It's
There's
hard to
not
compare.
very many hills here in Iowa.
You can go to the stadium and run stairs, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's enough about how the love story started. So I guess give us a little background on you guys because we don't really know a whole lot about you and like to get to know kind of where you guys are from. I assume you guys are related with the same last name. So what's the tie there? Just fill us in on that.
Yeah, so we're from Eastern Iowa. We're both brothers. We're two brothers, and Brunk Outdoors is
We're both
started.
brothers.
Yeah, we're both brothers of each other. That sounds right, right?
From the same mother, or
from this brother from the same mother. And Hunter actually started the YouTube channel. We've always, I think, growing up, we always had dreams of like being on TV and all that stuff, being the next Michael Waddell and all that, as every kid does. I mean, we started hunting at a really young age, hunted pheasants and turkey, and then upgraded to deer. And then once we started hunting deer, it just kind of took off. We kind of got really addicted to it. And then we ended up taking our first elk hunt, and both of us were in high school. I think it was 2013 it was. And then ever since we've been elk hunting every single year. Hopefully we'll still go this year. And just trying to figure it out. We've been on a few bear hunts, or we've been on one bear hunt, a few turkey hunts out of state, just hunting and having a good time. So Hunter can talk a little bit about the channel since he's the one who started it.
Yeah, so we start off with, I think, well, one funny video that's no longer there. Trevor found this video of, or actually, it was on a fishing trip. We've done some fly-in fishing trips up in Canada, and there was this bunny that basically beat up this squirrel and made like this terrible video out of it. But anyway, that one got deleted, and then our first real video was on a tuning video for one of my bows back in the day. I had like gotten really into archery and tuning, thought I could help people, show them, just basically take them through the whole process. And so that was kind of what our channel is about for the first year or so, I would say, is focus more on archery. But like Trevor said, I think everyone starts off with the goal of like, becoming really big one day and becoming the next Michael Waddell or whatever. But that dies out right away. So from there, it was just kind of like connecting with the followers and just interacting with people and trying to help people. And then we also just started really liking to be able to film our hunts and then go back and rewatch them. It's really rewarding. So got into filming hunts, and that's kind of where we're at now. Is basically anything we do hunting related can end up on the channel in some way. But yeah, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, I don't know, the regular stuff, but it's been fun.
So you said you guys kind of started putting that stuff up in 2013, 2014,
I think
or
it was 2015.
Yeah.
But I remember having cameras like growing up bow hunting, like, and I remember it was like this $80 action camera from Gainer Mountain that you can put on your bow. And I remember to this day watching footage back on one of the deer that I missed and being so mad. So like we've always kind of done a little bit of filming just to like show each other our hunts. And then it just kind of, we've just been doing it ever since. And we've been trying to create, I guess, better quality content and, like Hunter said, connect with the viewer. And yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, there's something about, I know my brother and I, we just converted a whole bunch of our high 8 videotapes that we had. I mean, we were the same way, and in our family, we had a video camera. You don't realize how much we used it until I started going through these tapes. I mean, we've got hours of us chipmunk hunting and squirrel hunting and skiing. Like, we were big into filming our ski videos and editing them and putting them up on. Back in the day, there was, I don't even know if it still exists, but there was a website with all the freestyle ski stuff, and we were posting our videos on there. So like, it's funny now it's just a matter of time. Like, I don't have the time to edit video. It's hard enough to do this sort of stuff. But I mean, the amount of time that you guys must spend, editing film, like, that's a whole nother avenue that compared to taking a podcast that I record and cutting out anything I don't want in there and then putting it up. It takes very little time compared to, producing a YouTube channel. But with all that said, we've got some, I think, pretty hilarious footage that I would love to somehow get put together into, digestible, shorter videos and put them up on our YouTube page, because they're classic. I mean, there's some funny shit on there, when we're like 14 years old and running around braces and acting like idiots. Yeah.
I want to see that chipmunk hunting video. I've never even seen that.
Yeah, Gargantuan Squirrels was the name of that hunting film. I was, yeah, I was.
Well, that was the thing about, like, when we started. I mean, for a while there, we would post like literally every single video, like every single hunt that we would go on, we'd make like a video on it, and it got to a point where we just started hunting all the time, and it was just impossible to keep editing videos. But it got to a point where we were doing those because, one, we could go back and remember that hunt, and you could figure out what you did wrong and learn from it. But also, we figured that other people would also be able to take like different tips and tactics and what not to do. Like on a few of the turkey hunts I remember we had, where I watch them back to this day, like, if I would have done that, I would have killed that bird. Or if I would have been set up here, or, for a deer hunt, I would have killed that buck. So we started doing that for a while. And then it got to a point where it was like, we're uploading videos all the time. And life was just getting in the way of life, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
And so we just we cut it back now to like one video a week. And usually the videos that we put out now, there's some sort of action in them. Like, it's not going to be a hunt where we only see like one deer. Usually when we put videos out, we either saw a big buck, or we killed a big buck, or there was something cool that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this time of year, what's your guys' stuff that you're working on right now? Do you still have hunting footage you're putting out, or is it mainly like gear related stuff or scouting or?
Right. I just put out our last deer hunting video for this season. We had I think it was 15 episodes of deer hunting videos. And this last video, I actually shot my second buck in Iowa. And now Hunter and I were just talking about this the other day as what should we do next? Because usually it's like we got this deer hunting pipeline of stuff, and the off season is so tough on our channel just because you can see people's
Yeah.
engagement with deer hunting just drop the minute that season not only like gets halfway, but like when it ends, because like it's insane. Like leading up to deer season, our videos do really, really well, and like there's a lot of views, and most of our subscribers are watching, and more than our subscriber lists are watching. But like this latest deer, I shot a buck, and you got a buck in the thumbnail, and it hasn't even hit like a quarter of our subscribers yet. So
Yeah.
it's just crazy how people just deer season's over. Like I'm done with deer right now.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear you say that, because it's something that I talk with a couple other guys that podcast about, that it's like, it's really frustrating because you're trying to stay consistent and put out good content, but then you see the listenership, changing. And, I look at myself personally throughout the year, my interests change, the things that I'm plugged into change. So inherently that's what's happening with people, but it's like, you don't want to veer off and, lose your consistency, because that's super important. They say, it's super important to stay consistent, so that your subscribers are, and I don't know. So I guess answer that for me. Like, are you seeing, well, it's a little bit different. You already answered that, kind of, that, you're seeing even the people that are subscribing, it drops off a little bit after season's over, but.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, I mean, right now, all I'm thinking about is either gear or shed hunting or nothing, because it's going to be like -5 all next week. And it's like, I don't want nothing to do with being outside and hunting. So, I mean, I get that portion. And to us, it's usually not about like views. Usually it's like, if we can at least get 1,000 of our subscribers to watch, we're like, okay, whatever. But like, sometimes the amount of work that goes into it, it's like, I worked a little too hard on this video.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have toned it down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. And I also think 2020 is, there was a shit pile of people that jumped into the YouTube game, that jumped into the podcast game. And it's like, it's very easy. People jump into stuff all the time and they don't stay with it. So I keep telling myself, don't get discouraged if you see numbers drop or they're not growing as fast as you want them to, because chances are other people are going to drop off, and they're going to find something else to do, and they're not going to stick with it. And you'll be the one still left standing. I mean, that's kind of always my approach to things with everything, is that I don't want to be the one to quit first, so.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a big thing.
No, you nailed it. Because I was thinking about this the other day. Is, I mean, we just were one of those guys who started a podcast, because I started a podcast a couple years ago, did a couple episodes, and then I couldn't juggle editing videos and editing podcasts. So then Hunter and I were just talking about, well, maybe we start a podcast, because there's so many topics that would make a good podcast, but would get nowhere on YouTube. The algorithm would just trash it. And on YouTube, you're a slave to the algorithm. And if, let's say, we post an hour-long video of us talking tips and tactics and wildlife management, and so many people watch it, like 5 people watch it, let's say, then the next 5 videos of ours are going to be dinged for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we've seen this too. I mean, the deer that I shot on public this year got over 100,000 views, and the next couple videos did pretty good, and then all of a sudden it just started to slowly taper back down again. And ever since, it's just kind of been that normal flow. So you got to stay up on the algorithm, and it's just kind of a beast. And I think I was thinking about this the other day, was I think, we had that same mentality of you. We were just doing it for fun, posting videos, stay with it. And that's kind of how we got to having the subscriber count that we have today. But I think it was also easier back then to get like a following.
Yeah.
Because there's less people doing it, to your exact point. Now everybody and their brother has a YouTube channel, and everybody's sharing on Facebook their videos, and how many people are actually going to click on them anymore, because it's just so saturated.
Yeah. So what do you understand about the algorithm? Because I'm too dumb to understand this stuff. Like, and I know Instagram's the same way. It puts the same stuff in front of you over and over again if it's what gets your attention. So, I mean, are you like when you're posting stuff, are you putting certain keywords and things like that in your titles? And is it as simple as that, or is it more complex than that?
Hunter shaking his head.
Sometimes it seems really random. It's like sometimes you think you figure it out, and then sometimes like a video will just do absolutely nothing, and you're just sitting there like scratching your head. So I wouldn't say we understand it, but I know a lot of it's based off of like the initial performance of each video or whatever content you put out. That's not even just specific to YouTube, but like if you get a bunch of people to watch your video in the first night, then the whole trajectory is just going to be like way better. So like when you post stuff matters quite a bit. And then
Now it's comments too.
yeah, amount of comments and
Watch time.
so I guess keywords doesn't really matter that much from what I've seen because it's all about just getting people to actually click. It's not about like the algorithm necessarily like recognizing the words.
My understanding is they gotta click on it and they gotta watch. It can't just be clickbait. The algorithm's this ever evolving thing from YouTube and they change it, it seems, all the time. Now it seems like the algorithms change to more comments lead to more views too. But for the most part, it seems like when we get a video that gets quite a bit of good front end viewership, like Hunter was saying, but they stick around for at least half of the video and they like, and there's some comments, it'll do pretty good. But if it doesn't get all of those factors, it's not going to do well. So the biggest thing is having a good catchy title and a good thumbnail. But anymore, everybody knows that a good title. So you got the, like, some of the stuff on YouTube is the most clickbaity things on the planet.
Well, and that's probably why they keep changing the algorithm, because people figure it out and then it's tricking the algorithm. So they have to just keep changing. But that's like, God, it's just like we're freaking, I don't know if you guys have watched that Social Dilemma documentary or not on Netflix. Have you watched that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you young bucks need to watch that stuff. Oh, it'll freak you right out, man. It's my wife and I watched it back, it was kind of the hot thing to watch around the holidays. And it's just talking, it's got a bunch of like big tech execs on there, people that have left Google and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. They've left these companies and they're just telling you what the hell's going on and how they're selling your information and your data. And it's freaking, it's crazy.
It's scary.
It's changed my wife and I's how we use. I mean, I'm not posting as much as I used to on Instagram and Facebook. I'm trying to reduce the amount that I'm using my phone. And I don't know. I think like this, I think that goes back to like the number of people that are watching stuff and engaging. I think people are burning out. I think the election cycle and everything was so freaking, it was just awful on everyone, regardless of where you sit, that people are just burnt out. And they don't give a shit if Pert in Your Outdoors posted a new podcast this week with somebody who's got all kinds of good shit going on. It's like, yeah, I could give two shits. I'm gonna go watch The Bachelor and think about nothing. That's what they're thinking.
It's also hard because YouTube's not a platform that supports hunting. Like the people in Silicon Valley, like their values and their goals aren't the same as ours who like to hunt and who value the Second Amendment. So that's always kind of another dilemma, is like if we had an actual good platform for hunting, that'd be great. I mean, I know there's different options, but there's not, in my opinion, there's no real other option anymore because YouTube's the second largest search engine in the world. That's behind Google. So
and Google owns
gotta be
YouTube,
in the game.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. They show you what you want to see, and that's a pretty crazy thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're no experts on the algorithms or anything. We should do a better job at Instagram and all that jazz. But at the end of the day, we always forget to post things and things that I don't even think about posting. When we do post something similar, people are like, "Oh, this is awesome," and it's like, "Oh, I don't even think about it." It's just, I don't know.
But that's good. I don't change that. Don't change who we are, because we're not in it for that. I think that's
Right.
I'm speaking for myself, but I think from what I'm getting from you guys, it's the same. You know, you guys are brothers. It's just like Jimmy and I and the rest of the guys here. It's like we're just passionate as hell. The only reason why we do this is that we want to share our adventures and share with other people to help and educate and everything else. And if you
Yeah.
get yourself
No.
caught up in just trying to get likes and trying to get followers, it's a dangerous path to go down because you lose track of what you're really here for, you know?
No, I agree. That's kind of been the sad thing about the hunting industry. It has gotten inflated with people who are in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's been the sad thing about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys know a lot of hunters that are out there that they don't even have, nobody even knows that they exist because they're just out there living the life and doing it. And they're probably some of the best hunters that anybody could ever meet
In the world. No,
Yeah.
yeah, I say that all the time. It's like people are like, oh, you guys get on so many big deer. It's like, I guarantee you there's a guy somewhere in Maine who kills more big deer and has less deer to hunt than we do. It's like we just make videos on it.
Yeah.
So it's like our dad doesn't really want anything to do with the channel. Like every now and then we'll like get him in a video,
Yeah.
but he's the same way. Like he's not on any social media, but he's like, well, he's one of the best hunters I know. He's taught us most of the things we know. So it's like just funny how we're so involved with it, but he's like so just not even in it that he's like doesn't even want to try. So it's funny.
It's awesome. Well, let's get right into that. Let's stop talking about all this BS. I want to hear about your guys' 2020 because I've been following you guys right along, and I didn't catch on what you did and what the sort of success you had in 2019, but I know that 2020 was a freaking whale of a year from following you guys on YouTube. So just curious on kind of walking through the season. You know, you started off out in Colorado, right? On your elk hunt.
Yeah.
So just kind of
that
walk
one-
us through the season, I guess.
That was, I mean, we had been on DIY hunts. Our first like do it yourself, pick a place on the map and go in there was a turkey hunt that we did a couple years ago out in Nebraska. I mean, we had done some like pick a spot on the map around here in Iowa, but that was the first time we'd ever like, all right, we're going to go sleep here, wherever we're going to be hunting, just camp out and go turkey hunt. So we've been using an outfitter and they would do a drop camp for us for those. I don't remember how many years it was, up until 2019. And this year, Hunter and I decided that we were going to try to do it all on our own. And we were just going to bivvy in, live off our backs. And so you actually talked to us about your experiences and that was helpful. But we went to a different unit, went in there. We both had muzzleloader tags and the snow came in. What was it? 2 days before we got there. And I think it totally changed the herd dynamics and the vocalizations. And we hunted hard. I mean, we were up and down the mountain all over the place. And Hunter actually scouted that unit in the summertime. He went out there for a summer vacation trip just to see if he could find bulls up at tree line, and he glassed a bunch of elk. So going into it, I think we were way more confident than we should have been because the snow hit and the elk were not there. And so it was all week. We were just honestly just getting our butts kicked. Like we were whooped. It was like, man, what are we doing? And then finally the second to last day, we were on X by the truck trying to figure out what to do, contemplating going home. And we said, this place looks good. Let's go here. So we drove to the spot. There was no trails like anywhere. We packed up over 4,000 feet elevation gain and the elk were there. Like we actually 2,000 feet into the climb, we heard an elk bugle, and then I glassed them up at tree line, and there's just a great big herd up there,
No shit.
bugling, and it was the craziest rut fest we've ever been. We got in to like probably 200 to 300 yards away from the herd, and another bull bugled to our right, like 80 yards. And so we tried calling him in, and he finally came in, and it was a spike, and I didn't have a clear shot at him. because you can shoot spikes in this unit, and there's
We weren't
cows
above
in
that.
there. And
No,
what's that?
And we aren't above that.
No, we're not. It
Had
was
some
brown
nice
legal
loins
and
on
down.
'em.
Yeah. I
And
just
we
saw
went up
fuzzy
the
spikes coming through the woods, and I let them have it.
but those ones got away, but we packed up the mountain and we were going after the herd bull. Honestly, we were just going after anything that was legal.
Right.
And a spike came in. He just came in silent, snuck in around the herd, and I saw him below me, and I shot and I whiffed because I was calling for Hunter, and he came in below me, and I whiffed, and Hunter ended up getting to shoot the elk. I think it was on a trot, Hunter.
It
And
was
he
on a
dropped it.
dead ass run.
Really?
Yeah. I just assumed Trevor had hit it. And so like I didn't even see him come in, which I don't actually know how looking back, but he ended up getting around me and went down below Trevor. Trevor shot at him and he ran down the hill, but then like stopped in some brush. And I could just see it, like identified, okay, it's like an elk. I saw some sort of antler on it. And I knew Trevor had shot at it. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna try to get another shot into it. I figured that's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, as soon as he clears this brush, I'm gonna, try it.
Let him have
and he comes out like, I mean, a dead ass run. And I just like my luckiest shot ever. I
Hey.
just like swung through and pulled the trigger and just dropped him. So
Did he
Yeah,
drop?
that was
yeah, I shot him in the neck. So not the best, but I mean, no meat wasted.
Yeah. So you guys using muzzle loaders? What were you guys using for bullets? Because it's open sight, right? You're in that primitive.
Yeah,
season.
federal. We were using the federal bore locks, which we had like mixed results with, but we got them to shoot really good out of these. We ended up getting a couple of CVA Wolves. They're just on the cheaper side, and they actually shoot really good out of those guns. So they're just really easy.
Nice.
And it just, yeah, I mean, those bullets just performed awesome. I have killed a few deer with them. And they just mushroom like amazing. Just some of the best terminal performance at any bullets that I've tried, to be honest.
How many grains?
Those ones are they're like 270.
Oh shit.
Yeah, the copper is probably like 250, but it's got that little seal on the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all shoot the Power Belt 348s for big game out west, but then they stopped making the 348s. So a bunch of the guys had bought up what they could find of the 348s, and I went to the 405s, and that's a freaking heavy ass bullet, dude. And
that kicks.
It kicks like target shooting. It is the worst. Like you can sit down and shoot 3 or 4 times, and you have to stop because you're either you're flinching or you literally are just hurting, and you're not going to make good shots. But I did kill one big pine tree in Colorado with a 405 grain bullet. Actually, 2 pine trees. Actually, I'm sure because the second shot was a clean miss as well. Yeah, in 2019, there I had. I don't think I ever told you guys because I don't think we talked about it, but I had a night where I was laying in a creek bed, and I had I had 10 elk, one of which was a big bull that was with the 9 cows, and I don't remember how many mule deer bucks it was, but there was at least 10 mule deer bucks. So I had 20 animals in front of me, both of which I had tags for. I had either sex elk tag, and I had a buck tag for mule deer. And I had the bull. I was focused on the elk because I wanted to shoot an elk real bad. And I had my range that I had been practicing at was 100 yards. That's where I was super comfortable, accurate. I'm like 100 yards. And that bull was at 114 yards, and I had the hammer cocked, locked in, like super calm and comfortable, and I didn't take the shot because I'm like, he's coming. Like the cows were coming right up the creek bed to me. I was in this meadow, and sure as shit, the cows are at like 60 yards, and I got all these bucks over here, and the bull is over. The bull actually left the cows to go push the bucks off because they were all within 100 yards of each other. was
That's
the craziest
crazy.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the bucks were all fighting with each other, and they were still in most of them were still in velvet. If I think almost all of them were still in velvet. And there were some freaking dandies in that group, but they were like 130, 140 yards. And so I ended up not pulling the trigger on that bull, and he goes over to the bucks, and one of the cows, I felt the wind shift, and it kind of sucked down, and it came right over my back, and one of the cows blew, and she went and took the whole group of cows and went right running towards the bull and the bucks and took them all right out of town. And I'm like, so the next morning, seeing what they had done in prior days, I went over and I set up for them to, we all kind of set up for them to come down from above tree line back into the trees to bed. That's what they were doing. And I mean, it worked out to a T. And I had this, it was a really good buck. I don't know what it would have scored, but it was a really good muley. And this deer, there was two of them together. They came down in this meadow, and I was in the bottom of the meadow in the pines, and had a rock solid brace. I was behind a blowdown with a pine tree at my back, like picture perfect situation. And this buck starts, coming, like he comes out into the meadow, and I'm expecting him to come out to right where I was hoping you would, at like 60 yards in the middle of the meadow. But he ends up staying in the trees that I'm in. There's kind of like at the bottom of the meadow, the trees kind of wrap around it, and he comes out, but then he goes and he gets in the pines, and he's like working his way around. And I mean, he's at 40 yards, but it's real dark. You know how dark it is in the pines. And I put it right where I knew he was going to walk out from behind this tree. And like, dude, I mean, I see it like it's yesterday. He steps out, and as soon I have a peep sight, and as soon as he stepped into my peep, I pulled the trigger, and I shot right in front of him. And I the smoke clears, and there's a little bit of a berm there. The smoke clears, and I'm pretty confident that he's going to be laying there dead. Like, I was rock solid. I was right on, felt super good. So I slowly reload, super quiet, and I sneak out, and I get down below the berm, and I go to pop up, and I'm expecting him to be laying there dead. And I'm looking right here, and all of a sudden I catch something out of the corner of my eye, and I look like this, and there's both the bucks are standing there, and they're huge, and they're standing there looking at me at 20 yards broadside. And I mean, it was probably a second, but it felt like a minute. And I pulled the gun up as fast as I could, and I put it right behind the one deer's shoulder. And as soon as I went to shoot, he jumped straight in the air, and I shot right underneath him. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like, a 14-hour period. And I'm like, you dumbass. I'm like, you blew it. Like, all the preparation, all the practice. I'm like, it was right here twice. You blew it. And that was the last chances I had the whole hunt. We had like 4 more days, and that was it.
Man,
but that's
we have
exciting.
yet to get on a big muley. That's cool.
Yeah, I think we've got a pretty cherry spot for muleys. I hope it stays that way, because it has been the last 4 years. We've had people in there the last 4 years, and it's been that way. So hopefully it stays that way. But
yeah, I mean, we've seen, like, it's been crazy though. Like, I mean, what was it, 7 years ago now we started elk hunting, and to see kind of how, like, I'm confident that the amount of people in the woods have turned elk into not bugling as much, because we saw it this year. I mean, the first year we went out elk hunting, elk would bugle all the time. And I'm sure it was way better 20 years ago, right? But elk would bugle all the time. And then this year, you couldn't buy a bugle from an elk. They're going to stay quiet all day. When they're bugling at night, like in camp, we'd hear them bugling all night long. And then in the morning, they'd shut up like right after first light. Or like one day we were near the bottom of the mountain, and it was kind of like near a campground, and there's a lot of traffic. And during the night, the only reason I heard all this is because this was the night after we shot Hunter's bull, and we packed him out. So we were both like exhausted, because we had to go up 4,000 feet, and then we slept that night, and then we packed down the morning after not getting another bull. But thank God we didn't, because I think we probably would have died.
Yeah, we tried, which was a bad idea, but we didn't get him. So,
which is
decided
good.
to just do a one trip out.
Yeah, what was that like? So you hauled that bull out, the two of you guys, in one trip?
Yeah,
downhill 4,000
and camp.
And camp.
Yeah. and camp.
What was
The-
I would assume you boned it out
with no water.
We actually didn't bone it out. I don't know why, but we just.
Well, I'm convinced.
I mean, it was.
The video
We
of it's hilarious. Watching you
we
two struggle
considered-
coming out of the mountains.
Yeah, we considered boning it out, but the problem is with the bone out, the meat's kind of just like there's no
Just a-
structure to it.
It's just a blob, yeah.
Right.
And so yeah, I was more worried on the fact that if we would bone it out, like I don't know exactly what the bone would weigh. So we're like, okay, maybe it's 10 pounds. Like, whatever. We can do
that
it,
we
right?
just didn't even like want to take the time.
Yeah.
At that point,
Yeah, so
we were just like, let's
we
just
loaded
go.
up, and that thing hurt. Like it wasn't as much like cardio wise because we're going downhill, but I mean it was steep. It was a steep climb going up and going down. Like my knees and my feet, like by the end, and when I took that pack off, I don't think I walked right for like 3 days. It was pretty bad. It not recommended, I should say.
I mean, by the end of it, we were probably only moving like, well, we were probably going like 100-yard stints is all we could even make it at the end. And then like the last one was a really long push where we like finally made it to the end. But yeah, we ended up getting off the mountain and like, I don't know, a lot of people probably won't believe like that 4,000 feet or whatever, but we started at eight something at the trailhead, I guess. And I killed the bull a little over 12,000 feet. The tree line in that unit's like really high. But anyway, like just to like put it into perspective, I guess, on how like exhausted we were. We went to like really good just bar and we both got burgers, I think. And it was just like amazing, right? Because we've been eating Mountain House every day and just living off our backs. And I don't know, I probably ate too fast or whatever, but that was our last day. So then we picked out a spot to camp and like set up tent. And like as soon as I got in the bag, I did not feel right. Like just so exhausted. Anyway, not to get too gruesome, but I ended up like throwing up all night. So just was not right. And
Probably
I
dehydrated.
think that's when Trevor heard just messed up. I mean, maybe in shock. I don't know, but I was carrying out like my body weight basically
Yeah,
the
you
whole
had
way
to have been.
down.
If you had
So-
camp and half a bowl on your back, you easily had that.
So I'm sure it wasn't too good for me, but I think that's when Trevor heard the bull bugling all night. And he said whenever like the trucks started rolling in the morning to go up the basin to hunt, the bulls just like stopped.
Shut up.
bugling. They just instantly knew.
And it was like a place that this campground kind of set up below one of the mountains that we hunted at one point in this trip. And the bull was bugling all night. And he wasn't bugling the 3 days prior when we were up in that spot. So like he was in there when we were there. But it was just so interesting. You start hearing those trucks rolling in at like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. The bull he shut up like nothing. You'd have no idea that the bull was even in there if you weren't up in the middle of the night.
Interesting. Yeah. I definitely, I mean, we've seen it, both going out to Colorado on recreational trips as well as going out there hunting twice. The volume of people, especially like I couldn't believe it in 2019, the amount of people that we saw recreating like up in the high country. I'm like, what are you doing up here? We had a day. We're up in this spot. This is 7 miles from a trailhead and it's an aggressive area. And all of a sudden I'm like hearing voices. I'm like, what the like, where is that coming from? Like, is there hunters camped up here in this corner? It's like it's almost impassable above you. And then there's like a corner of pines and this is where elk had been hanging. And we'll look up on this pass and there's like a whole group of people. There's like 8 or 9 people that are wearing like helmets, like rock climbing helmets. I don't know. And they're like coming down this, literally it's a mountain goat path. They're coming down a mountain goat path. And then I watch them, they come down this path and then they're going across this huge rock field. And I'm like, what the I'm like, no wonder we're not seeing any elk. Like the elk the same way. In 2019, the elk were silent. Like we shot that bull opening morning and that was it. Like they were in there, but they were not making a peep, and you couldn't find them. You could smell them. You knew they were there, but you couldn't hear them. You couldn't see them. It's the damnedest thing. But I just think there's so much activity that they just have adjusted when they're doing what they're doing around that,
No, I totally agree. We had the same thing. We were like 5 to 6 miles back, I think. And we got up in a spot and we ended up leaving the camp, went up, did some hunting, came back because we were going to move camp and go in further. Came back and there was like 3 other groups of people, just hikers.
No hunters.
And yeah, no hunters. All of them are hikers and they're all looking at you funny. And one of them proceeds to yell as loud as they can up the basin. She literally just screamed up the basin and she goes, "Oh, that probably didn't help you." And I'm like, why is it that I pay $700 for a tag and I'm funding part of the Colorado wildlife and you have hunters or you have recreators that are harassing your hunting?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
That's a huge topic right now. The recreation industry is just absolutely booming and they're just recreating the snot out of these places. And, there's a lot of hot takes on it. And I don't know, it's a scary thought because like I listen a lot to Cafaro Cast, Aaron Snyder. And I love it when he has different guys on from around Colorado and the West, that are pretty passionate about this stuff. And it's like, like they put it in the fact that, if you start asking these groups of people that aren't hunters to pay for their recreation, that then gives them a seat at the table. It's like this double-edged sword. Like if they're using it, they should have to pay just like we do to maintain it and support it. But then if we allow them to start paying for it, and if they have excise tax on their backpacking, they have way more voices than we do.
Right.
And many of them don't support hunting. So very, very easily we could lose our, it's this ebb and flow balance that's very delicate right now,
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
One funny thing to get a little bit lighter is like, if you want to, one of the funniest stories from that trip is like, if you want to feel like when you get 7.5 miles in or whatever, you start to feel like you're a badass, right? Like, man, no one else is back here. Like, look at me, Well, it works good until you're on a trail in Colorado. You're like 2,000 feet above the truck, 7 miles deep, and you're like in your ultralight hunting stuff and whatever. And then you come upon these 2 like 60-year-old women who are just up there camping, having fun, that hauled in lawn chairs to relax and watch the mountain. And we're like, okay, that puts it in perspective. We're not special.
And they brought 4 pounds of gear.
Yeah.
3 granola bars, like, yeah, we're here for a month. It's like
they've got a dog. Right. It's like, what are you feeding the dog?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it dehydrated dog food?
It's browsing on foliage. Yeah. Our dog's a grazer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we ran into, we actually, when we were up there, we ran into, on 2 separate days, we ran into an older woman. She probably had to be in her late 60s, early 70s at this pass. And here we are, 5 hunters, and same deal. We're the only hunters up there, and had a wonderful chat with her. And then a few days later, we run into this guy about the same age, all by himself. And he's like, "Hey, did you guys run into a woman up here the other day?" We're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, that was my wife." He's like, "We don't." He go, "Yeah." He's like, "No." I was like, "Oh, really? You guys don't?" He's like, "No, we pretty much do our own thing. She goes on her hikes, I go on my hikes, and we leave each other alone." I'm like, oh, "That's cool," but it's a family endeavor. Heading up to the pass to just take a morning walk. 7 miles in. It's like it's a totally different style of life. I mean,
oh, it's crazy.
Around you guys, around us, it's like I walk 1.5 miles into public to go hunt. And it's like somebody sees you in there. They're like, "You walked all the way in here?" It's like, yeah.
No, Hunter and I joke about that all the time because like in Iowa, we don't have that much public land, right? And in Iowa, if you've gone more than 1 mile on public, it's relatively hard to do. There's few places to do that. And when I see like posts from guys saying that they're 3 miles back on public land in Iowa, it's like, how many parking lots did you have to walk by to get 3 miles deep to kill that deer? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. Come on.
Hey, they're all savages, man. Doing it for the gram.
My favorite one is shooting them right off the road.
Yeah. Why not? If that's where they are, go get them.
Yeah.
So
But yeah,
what's
we came off
Oh, go ahead.
that trip, and Hunter started off pretty quick. He had the world's best week of hunting, and he shot a good deer. Then he shot his biggest deer with a bow.
Yeah, we got a new piece to deer hunt this year. It's a lease, and it's just this cattle pasture, so we weren't real sure how good it would be. We thought about not even, I guess, going through with it. Just didn't want to waste any money. You know, it wasn't overpriced or anything, but we're just not sure. And we had other places to hunt. We hunt public, like we've been talking about too. So anyway, we weren't even sure whether we wanted to hunt it, but we decided to go through and threw up some cameras. Like first weekend of season, we had like 2 preset stands in there that we just map scouted, like basically rut funnels. And they were decent stands for that, but basically we had to do some observation sits and adjust from there. But yeah, like first card pull, I go in, and actually like one of the first good deer that I saw was the buck that Trevor ended up killing, just like the last buck of the season, the video that he just posted. And it was one of the pictures where they're like walking away, so they look like twice as big too. So I'm like, holy crap, that thing's huge. And like I didn't even look at any other pictures. I just like packed up and got ready to hunt. And anyway, that place ended up producing a lot. It's like this cattle pasture, but it's surrounded by a lot of big timber, so it's just that diversity that they like, and has a lot of clover in it, so just a lot of deer come out to feed. And we ended up going in there on like October 18th, and one of the other deer on that first card pull was like, I can't say for sure, but like I think he was like some ancient buck, because just like the way he looked, he was like a really heavy deer, and like the belly sag was more aggressive than I've ever seen before in my life. It's kind of weird, but obviously we don't have any history, so I can't say like for sure he was ancient. But I thought, I should shoot him if I get the chance. And he came out at like, I don't know, it was probably like 3 hours before dark. And I was like, man, do I want to shoot him or wait for that bigger one on camera, the one that Trevor ended up shooting actually? And anyway, some does were getting nervous, so I thought, well, it's now or never. So I pulled up and I got steady. It was a farther shot, but I pulled it off. It was like a 185-yard shot with the muzzleloader, but scopes, and using a sabot, so just really, high tech muzzleloading. Yeah, I mean, it not a crazy shot for a modern muzzleloader, so that worked out good. And then actually like 30 minutes after that, this other buck that I keep talking about came out, and I just had to watch him because I still have a bow tag, but I had just shot a deer with my muzzleloader, so obviously was out of tags for the day, and I just watched this big deer just go and feed out in the pasture, and ended up recovering my first one and got that out of there. That was on a Sunday, so we had to go back to work and school. And that next weekend, Trevor and Heidi went in, hunted that place out of that main stand, that permanent set that we have, and had some good observations. Saw some other mature deer out of range, probably like 350 yards away. Like you can see a long ways in this spot out in the pasture. And anyway, it just so happened that it was another Sunday evening, and Trevor had to go back to work. And I was able to extend my weekend a little bit. Just, with school, I can drive back on a Monday if I need to or whatever. I have a little bit more flexibility than Trevor does. So I stayed to hunt Sunday night. And I joke about it all the time because it's like he just bedded this deer up, because it turns out he actually filmed this deer go into bed that morning in the big timber. And I was able to make an adjustment and actually sat on the ground and got him that night. So I always say he tied him up for me, and I just went in there and executed him. But yeah, that was an insane hunt too. He actually I don't even know if this is falling anymore, but that big 8-pointer that I keep talking about actually kind of got his butt kicked by the deer that I ended up killing that night. Just first time I've ever seen like a mature buck fight. It was just really loud, really cool experience. I got some decent footage, and then right at last light, he came out and came in range, and I was able to. I shot him on the ground at like 10 yards, so it was pretty intense. But.
Yeah, that was yeah. You guys put together some incredible video this year. I mean, I can't say I've watched your stuff from years prior. I really jumped on to what you guys are posting this year, and I mean, is this normal? Like,
no.
Because I mean, I'm watching the footage. I'm like, holy shit! I'm like, and you guys are getting to kill everything on camera, and I was like, damn, it was impressive. Like, kudos, because it's not. I know it's not easy, especially solo filming, and getting good quality film of this stuff is not easy.
Yeah, I didn't do
one thing
quite as good of a job of getting the kill shot on film. I didn't get that big one, the actual kill shot. I was running out of light, and he actually came in behind the tree, basically made a big loop around me, and I was sitting basically, like I said, in the middle of a pasture, like on the ground in a ghillie suit. Like I could not move the tripod around. I just could not.
Yeah.
So I just left it and made the shot. But other than that, I think we did a lot better this year in getting kill shots. But I would say it was a way better than normal year as far as amount of encounters and mature bucks that we were seeing. I think overall the amount of mature deer in our area was higher this year than we've seen before. And Trevor made a real job out of the season, hunted all November and all late season, so he was able to get out in the field longer too. So that definitely played into having more footage.
You'll learn, Hunter. You don't. This isn't it's a marathon, not a sprint. You don't need to rush the season and to be over. In freaking October.
Oh, trust me.
Especially once you get a woman and you get kids, it's like, nah, I still got a buck tag left. I got to get out there.
Trust me, I wanted to keep going a little bit, but I couldn't pass up that second deer.
No, absolutely not. What was I gonna say? So how does that work with you guys? So you get you guys get 2 tags and you can use them basically whenever you want and during the season, or no?
No, so first year, sorry. We have you get 1 bow tag, which is like October 1st until whenever the first gun season starts in December, and then it takes a break for the shotgun seasons. There's 2 shotgun seasons, and then that bow season, if you haven't filled your tag, but then actually opens back up for the late stretch, and then you get 1 gun tag. Unless you're a landowner, you can get 1 tag, 1 extra tag, so you can have 3 total on one of the other seasons.
Bucks,
which is kind of confusing.
Are we just talking bucks or
yeah? These are your
bike
sex
county
tags.
doe tags too.
Right. Okay. It's pretty much the same way it is here. But you shot the buck with your muzzle loader first. So what can you use a muzzle loader during, or is there a muzzle loader season during archery?
There's a 1 week long early muzzleloader season, and it actually, even for residents, it's capped at like 7,500 tags. So you kind of have to. It depends on the year. Like sometimes they don't ever sell out. I actually don't think they sold out this year, but sometimes you have to get them like right away. Yeah. So even with residents, there's a cap, but that's only that 1 season that we have to do that for.
But even 7,500 tags, like it just shows like the number of people difference between Iowa and here. Like our county, our region had like 20 something thousand doe tags, and they're almost all gone. It's like,
holy
just
cow.
To give you an idea, like the volume, like you tell me you got 7,500.
How big of an area? Your county?
It's a couple, 2-3 counties, but
okay.
I mean, that's a lot of doe tags, And so for you to say you got 7,500 and sometimes there's tags left, it's like, that's insane.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's maybe not the best representation because you don't have to do that season. Like a lot of people prefer the late muzzleloader season, but I guess for comparison wise, our county, a couple of counties that we hunt are in some of the higher deer population areas. So like our county's doe limit is a little over 2,000, which is on the high side for Iowa. And like what you're saying, and by the way, that never sells out. Like usually
people just don't shoot does, right? I mean,
I guess. I mean, I don't
There's
know.
not as many people too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get across is we sell maybe 1,000 doe tags, and you're talking about selling 24,000.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a lot more. I guess Iowa's good habitat, but there's probably more habitat, if I would guess, in
Yeah. There's
New
more
York.
open space.
I mean, given all the ag fields.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just two different worlds. I think it's a huge reason why you guys get the size of the bucks that you do. I mean, you have incredible habitat, good nutrition, but you also don't have the hunting pressure and the volume of people. And I think that's a huge piece of it. I can't wait to experience it someday because it's going to be.
Yeah, start applying.
So yeah, started last
They're
year.
not good. They're not good to non-residents. But if you look at a map of Iowa, like there's not that much cover. Is kind of what I'm trying to say. Like there's not much. So like when we're looking at our farm and like we're doing wildlife habitat changes to it, it's like most of the stuff that we do, it's we need more cover. Whereas like in your case, it's we need more food probably. Right.
Well, and that's where like it's in our situation, like our family farm, we're in big ag country, so there's not a lot of woods. There's a ton of, so it's that. But then you go to where my actual, like my in-laws have the farm. My family we have a hunting camp over in the hills, and in the it's all timber. There's hardly any ag. So it's like two completely different situations. We're trying to find food for them and make food for them at camp. But then here on the farm, we're going the other way where it's like we've gone way too far on food plots. We need to start letting this stuff grow in, do some CRP, trim out some of the trees that aren't producing anything, and cutting out sunlight to the undergrowth and stuff like that. Like it's a fun process to go through, like managing your property. I've never really been able to do that. So it's really fun, that we're getting into it now, trying to improve our habitat. That's a really fun process. I'm finding I get really excited about it.
Yeah, it's almost
I would say
just as fun as deer season, just to be able to like improve the property. And this year we didn't really have on our farm like a deer that we termed a shooter, right? And so it was kind of just Dad ended up shooting the one deer that we did have a bead on, a big mainframe 8-pointer, and ever since we just kind of laid off the property because we didn't want to spook off our up and comers. We didn't want to mess with them. And a lot of people are like, I mean, even my thought is if I want to see a lot of deer, I should just go to the farm. But it's like, there's nothing that I should be shooting. So just kind of lay off of it. And yeah, it's just cool to see those up and comer bucks when you're sitting there and it's like, man, you look really nice, better than we look at you on trail camera. And then it's like 2 more years, buddy. 1 more year, buddy. We'll see you here soon.
Yeah.
And
just keep eating that stuff and we'll be back. Yeah. That's exactly, it's different place, but same scenario. I mean, we've really backed off. We've found other places. We've found public. We've figured out other ways because you take 4 people, and I don't know how many acres do you guys have on the farm that you're able to really
about
hunt.
200.
Yeah. It's very similar to our situation, but not, you've got a lot of field, not a lot of woods. That's what we have.
Exactly.
So you take 4 guys and sometimes 5, depending on if Brian's wife is hunting much. And it's like, you got 3 months to hunt that. You can hunt the snot out of it in the first month and you can ruin it for the whole season. So, we're trying to strategically spread our pressure out. And exactly like you said, I mean, if there isn't something there that we all want to target, then don't spend your time there. Let the deer be, let them have a safe place to make it through the season. So then we can, meet with them next November and take care of business then, So you had your buck, Trevor, that was one of the most wild videos. And for you two to be on that hunt together, like that was freaking wild. Like, I don't know. I think that's one of the wildest whitetail hunting videos I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was the wildest whitetail hunt I think I've ever been on. And to get to that point, I had hunted hard. Like I didn't balance my work vacation time very well. So I had more vacation than I thought I did. So looking back, I should have taken more opportunities for those 2 good cold fronts in October. But I had a majority of the November off. So I was hunting all the time. I ended up sticking a deer that was bigger than the deer that I ended up shooting, and I didn't recover him. And I've been kicking myself and shot a doe the morning prior to seeing the deer that I ended up killing. I shot a doe just to build my confidence back up. And I was feeling good. And we ended up going to a piece of public. We were going to go to a piece of public that we had some good success seeing deer late season last year when I only had a doe tag. We saw a lot of deer and we saw quite a bit of nice bucks. And it's a unit that we hunted a lot last year, but we didn't hunt very much this year just because more pressure rolled in. And I'm not sure if it's because people noticed it more on some of the videos, which we've seen happen, or if it's just coincidence. And we got to that spot and there was like 3 trucks in the parking lot. And how this unit worked out, if they were anywhere, if we had to walk by them, we didn't want to be jerks about it. And we were getting in there a little bit later just because we were messing with my doe. And so then Hunter goes looking on the maps on Onyx Maps, and he's like, hey, we could go try this one place that I scouted this summer. I'm like, yeah, all right, let's do it. And we halfway there, he's like, let's go to this other parking lot though, but I've never been there. We get there, we walk in, we're both set up just to hunt off the ground, to sit off the ground. We've had a lot of good success doing that in the past. And we wanted to get to like a point in the cove of like this marshy area where it comes to more big cover. And we wanted to get there, but about 100 yards off, we were seeing a lot of really good fresh scrapes, had a lot of good oaks, pin oaks, and some acorns on the ground. And we're like, this is a perfect setup for a deer to come travel this edge. And there was main food sources probably 250, 300 yards away. We're like, a big buck's going to come and out of that thick cover there. And he's going to come on this edge, hit these scrapes and come up. Well, at about 4:15, I think it was, we caught glimpse of the deer up in that cove where we originally wanted to set up. He came strolling through. We didn't get any footage of him, but both of us got a good look at him through the binoculars. And we could tell it was either split G2 or split G3 on his right side. And it looked like a lot of tines on his left side. And we're like, shooter. We saw him like,
No
holy
doubt,
cow,
yeah.
he's huge. Like, it's not even one that you're like, oh, he's a nice public land deer. It was a giant. And so he ended up, what we didn't get on video was he ended up coming in kind of behind us, probably 90 yards away, I would say. And there was turkeys up in there. So I'm not sure if he winded us or he got nervous with the turkeys, because I grunted at him and all of a sudden I saw a tail just come up and he was bounding off and I just saw a massive frame. So I'm like, it's the same deer. So that was
We're assuming.
Oh yeah, we're assuming it was the same deer. That was the only deer that we saw in that unit hunting it those 2 days. I guess if they are the same deer, which is weird for Iowa. So that was supposed to be my last hunt of the season, because up until that point I had hunted 22 days in Iowa just in November. That's not including October. So like I said, it got insane. I spent a lot of time in the deer woods. And it was supposed to come home that morning to go get a Christmas tree. And I talked Heidi into letting me. I didn't really have to talk her into letting me. She was just like, yeah, I don't really care what you do. And I told her, well, if we can go in and get set up on him at good light, he's going to come back. Like, he's going to come back in bed in there. And so that's what we did. We went in there early, got set up in the exact spot that we saw him cross. And what didn't make it in the video is at first light, how we were set up. Hunter was behind me, probably like 5 yards, maybe closer to this big oak tree stump, and its top fell off the tree. And I was kind of like hidden up in this treetop facing like the marsh where I expected the buck to come back from feeding that night, and had a lot of good back cover, set up perfect, not even expecting to shoot behind me. Like, we're on the ground, I ruled out shooting behind me. Next thing I know, I hear something walking just over the rise of the ridge. And it's not shooting light yet, but I got set up, sat still, just listened to it. And it was that rhythm. Like, it's a deer rhythm when you hear it in the woods. And it just sounds like a deer. And it's like, yeah, that's a deer. But after listening to it for like 5 minutes, could never see it. It was still pretty dark. And then all of a sudden it disappeared and I didn't hear anything else. So I was like, maybe it was like a raccoon or something. So like right at first light, there was a pair of raccoons that came in and I'm just sitting there lollygagging, looking at them, watching them and laughing at them because they're just being raccoons. Next thing I know, I follow one of them walking to my right. It's kind of more towards behind me and Hunter's still off kind of my left shoulder here. And all of a sudden I see this, what looks like a deer butt. Like that's weird. I literally said in my head, that's weird. It looks like a deer butt. All of a sudden it's like, that's a tail. That is a deer. And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, I see this split G2. I'm like, holy cow, that's a buck. And I see an eyeball and it's just standing there. And then I look over to see what Hunter's doing. And I'm like twisted all around my body. And Hunter's got the camera out around the tree filming. And he's got his other hand right behind his head, just waving, like trying to get my attention without saying anything, just hoping. And I'm like
15 yards from this deer.
Yeah, he's 15 yards from it. And the deer's just standing there. How the wind worked out, it was honestly perfect for where he was at.
It had to
because, oh yeah, like it was coming off the ridge from him right to us, and it was blowing. Like it ended up being pretty high winds that day.
Well, we had thermals and the winds.
Yep. So the deer's standing there, and I'm like, holy cow, this is cool. There's no way I'm going to get a shot at this buck. Like in my head, I'm like, there's absolutely no way. I'm like, well, at least we saw him. The plan worked, right? So I'm sitting there watching him behind me, and I can literally only see his eyeball, the top of his split G2, and then I can see his back leg, and I can see just a small opening in like the center mass of his body, but I can't tell where his leg is to lead up to his front shoulder. So I sit there for a while, and the buck is just standing there and he's not moving. And I think he's going to spook any minute. So I'm like, what in the heck's going on? So like 20 minutes into it, I decide, well, maybe I should try to see if I can turn around, because at some point he's going to go somewhere. If he walks by Hunter and he doesn't see Hunter, God forbid, which I didn't think would happen, that he would walk and I could get a clear shot, but I didn't think would happen. But I was really hoping that he was going to turn around and go back up that ridge, and I would have been able to have a good shot at him. And so I'm like, I definitely need to turn around. So I start inching, like I'm in more like a marshy grass. So it's super loud. So at that time, there's like squirrels and turkeys making noise. So I would time it like every minute. I would like barely move, just enough that I'd like made progress, but not enough to like make a bunch of noise. And then I just sit there for a while, and I did that, and it just hurt. Like it was the most agonizing thing I think I've ever done. And I'm sitting on my knees, and I finally got turned around, and I'm sitting there like, there's still no way. He hasn't moved. Like, I have no idea that he's got his head resting on a log.
Wasn't this like, it was like 45 minutes, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. So at that point, it was probably like 45 minutes. The buck was just standing there, and I had no idea why. Like, I didn't realize it. Hunter didn't even realize it at the time, that the buck had his head on the log at one point. At some point, he was itching his head on it. I honestly, I have no idea what the heck he was doing, but I ended up working to a spot where I found an opening the size of a softball. And I'm like, I don't know if this is too good to be true or what. So I'm like, I'm going to draw back. I'm going to see if I can draw back on this buck. And I'm going to see if I'm comfortable, if I can get steady, and if I think I can make a good shot, and if I'm confident. So I do that. I draw back, and in the video, he sees me draw back, because he starts to like move backwards, which looking back just helped me tenfold on the shot placement, because I didn't still didn't see where his front shoulder was, but I assumed the hole I had by where his rump was positioned, that it was going to be a lethal hit. I wasn't just shooting to shoot. And he ended up moving back, and I'm at full draw. And I remember just sitting there looking at the gap, checking my arrow clearance, making sure everything was going to fly right. And I'm like, okay, it looks like it's going to fly right here. So I get settled in on the pin. And I just remember just like, you better make this, like in my head, I'm like, you better make this shot count. And I did. And I didn't even know I hit him because I was so focused on trying to bury the pin. And it was like a 20-yard shot max. It zipped through him super fast. And you see in the video, he runs up the hill. And at that point I stood up. And when I did, I didn't realize that I got into like I said, I only had one softball size shooting lane, but ended up deflecting 2 other arrows at him. And then I was more mad at myself. I didn't even pay attention to like why the deer was standing there, because I was more mad that I didn't shoot or I didn't make the second follow-up shot fast enough. I actually had to go walk up the hill and get one of the recovered arrows and sneak up around the hill, grab it, and then I was able to finish the job faster. But that deer, like, I nicknamed him now the CWD buck, just due to the fact that everybody in the comments on YouTube, like, there's people that, I mean, there's good people, but there's a lot of people that was like, that wasn't even a legitimate buck kill and blah, blah, blah. He had CWD. I mean, looking back, could he have had CWD? Maybe, but it wasn't a CWD county. He didn't have any of the traits, in my personal opinion, to say that it was a CWD buck.
I think he looked completely exhausted. He just looked like he was just shot. That's what my takeaway was. It was like, well, maybe he's sick, but then maybe he's just completely exhausted.
No, so that was our first thought, is he was just so worn down, because I don't want to say for sure, but his left side, he had he had 2 broken tines. One of his tines was a G3, and it had a 6-inch base measurement. So it was a giant thick tine. Like, it was probably his G2s were like 14 or 15 inches. So that tine was another giant tine that got busted off, and that one looked relatively fresh. And then he had his what was that? His G5. It would have been. It was probably like a shorter tine, and it was torn off. And it tore off like a section of his beam, like half of his beam. It tore off like a good 3-inch chunk of the beam, and like probably an inch deep into it. It was nuts. And that one looked like it was, I don't know, not new, but maybe there was a little bit of dirt in it. So that's why we thought for sure that he was just worn out from the rut. And
do you think he was fighting and broke it, or do you think he got hit by a car or something? I mean, that's insane. If another buck broke that, like,
I honestly think another buck broke it, because we saw more deer this year with busted tines than I think we have in years past. And I'm not sure if it has to do with the food in the area or what, or just the rut was just so intense this year. But I mean, yeah, I don't think he was hit by a car. Just, it wasn't around a place that had like a lot of traffic. It was just mostly gravel roads. Yeah. And I looked him over, and the only 2 puncture wounds he had were from my arrows. So other than that, he looked fairly healthy. He had, I mean, a lot of people caught it in the video. He had like ruffled up hair, and he had like patches of hair gone, which I assume could have been just from a fight.
You see that a lot around here with like tick scratching, though. Like, almost all the bucks have. I don't know what it's like up there, but like,
yeah,
our taxidermist is always saying, like, you can tell where we shoot these deer in the state, because like south of one of our interstates, like, the amount of ticks are just insane, and like almost every year has like big patches of hair missing, honestly, just from tick rubs.
Yeah.
But it was a crazy encounter. I'll never see anything like it. And I don't know. It was honestly a deer that was too good to be true. And it's like, it was the last day. It was a hunt that wasn't supposed to happen. And a giant just stood there for that long, and I was able to get a shot. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. It's cool that you two were together and experienced that. Two brothers together experiencing that situation. But that's one thing Jimmy and I, we haven't hunted together a lot in the last, in a long time. We've kind of been in this routine where we're trying to, fill tags, and
Yeah.
he lives an hour from me. So we hunt different schedules. And so it's definitely cool. Like my brother shot his best buck this year on Thanksgiving, and it was awesome to be there with him and celebrate that. And I was able to meet up with him when he shot his bow buck, which was his best bow buck ever. That's a huge part. It's cool seeing you guys doing what you're doing, couple brothers, and we've got a group of us here, but it's Jimmy and I are a big part of it, and it's family's a huge piece. I enjoy watching your guys' videos, and the video with your dad with his buck, like that was cool. Just seeing that, and now knowing that he's anti social media and everything else makes it even better. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we don't usually get to do it too often if we all have tags, but I mean, it's just kind of, we don't care who shoots the deer out of the group. Like, I remember when Hunter shot that buck that day that I had to go back to work, it was like, you killed him. Like, that's insane. Like, I just wish I could have been there to see him. Like, I have never even seen this deer yet. So it's like, the coolest part about all of this is just being able to not only one, film your hunts, but two, be there together. Like Hunter got the coolest footage of that buck that day that I would have never gotten self-filmed. Yeah. And just like looking back, I'll never forget looking at Hunter in a pure panic after shooting all of my arrows and going, did I hit him? And him looking at me and go, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, like it was like I literally hit the lowest point in my life, in my hunting career. And then all of a sudden, like it finally worked out. It was just like a full 180, 360, whatever you want to call it. And Hunter and I, at the end of the day, were like, what just happened?
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and it was cool because it was, like you said, it was his last hunt. And then after we had like gotten to that public land spot that we wanted to go and there's people there, like we just completely threw out like all of our chances really. So to like completely write it off and then go from like the next 24 hours after that was just unreal. And we talked about earlier how I like filled my tags right away, but I remember I was still hunting just as hard basically for Trevor as I would have been myself. I mean, I'd be like going to class and I'd be like, man, like I need to get out of here so I can go down and scout for Trevor. I was like hunting that hard. And then like one last thing I want to bring up about this encounter was like, I know one of Trevor's first thoughts also when he saw this deer right behind us was like, Hunter's going to spook this deer because he's shaking so bad.
Oh yeah. Like his leg and his whole body was shaking. Just,
I can't imagine an encounter for that long. That would tear me apart. I couldn't. And that's a huge buck. I can't even fathom because we don't have things like that walking around here. So yeah, I can't even understand what that type of experience would have been like in person.
We got to get you into Iowa. You got to start applying, and we'll show you some spots.
Yeah, so a bunch of us have been. A few of our guys have been into it for a couple of years. Last year was my first year putting in, so I can plan on continuing. But the whole late muzzleloader interests me, just because of our schedules here and everything, and it might be easier for me to convince the home front of a early January muzzleloader hunt.
Yeah, but I don't. Pressure's lower too.
Yeah,
I think you can draw that in 1 and 2 max. I think that one's fairly easy to draw if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
some people get to hunt that every year.
Yeah, I don't know, because I think it might be tough. I don't know if a Western hunt. I want to do something this year. I just don't think it's in the cards for me. I'm not ruling it out, but I don't think it's likely. So I have an itch to get out west of the Mississippi is what I keep saying. So I don't know. I'm going to definitely look into that. I've tossed the idea around to a couple people, and I think muzzleloader in January in Iowa would be pretty freaking fun because I'm not that confident with a bow. I can shoot deer with a bow, but if I can put a muzzleloader in my hands, I will do that every day of the week. So and
That's
snow.
funny. I'm the opposite.
Really?
I'm awful with a gun. That's the one thing I want to work on. Well, plus I'm going to get more into making sure my archery is just even better than it was last year. But yeah, I've never been good with the gun. But offline, let's get together and we can get talking about that. Because
Yeah.
if you get around there, we can help show you where to go. And
Yeah, that'd be a huge help.
It's a tougher season, in the sense that like it's after the shotgun season, so the deer have been pressured. But when you get into like January, like you were talking, everything's settled back down, and there's really not hardly anyone in the woods at that time of year. So then the real big thing then is finding their food sources. Like they're usually pretty grouped up. So
Yeah.
it's been a challenging season for us, but you usually get into some, I guess for us,
weather
it's been, like,
dependent.
every year we know that during that time we can like hopefully I get one opportunity at a decent buck on public.
Yeah. And that's all I could ask for. Just an
Yeah.
experience. I just want to get out there and, I don't know if I want to wait and do it every 4 years. If it's not that bad of a drive, we can be out there in 14 hours, 12, 14 hours. If I could do that every couple of years, for a 4 or 5 day hunt, that seems pretty darn appealing to me. So
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, we'll definitely have to connect offline because there's other stuff, out in the Midwest that, deer wise that I think I'd like to pick your guys' brains on in neighboring states and stuff too. So yeah, definitely appreciate you guys getting on here. I appreciate connecting with you guys, and hopefully someday we can, whether it's physically hunting together or helping each other out one way or the other. You guys have a hell of a lot more to offer than I do. So, if you want to come to New York and shoot freaking dinkers, come on over. We've got plenty of tags, but probably not. Probably not.
I've always
But
wanted to
we
see
pr-
that country up there, but it, like you said, it's all about the experience. So
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, we do a huge hunt in Pennsylvania every year. The last few years have been, 14, 15 guys. And, I don't know if you watch like what the Hunting Public, their series they did. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're copying us. I'm kind of offended we didn't get invited on their hunt this year, but just kidding. No, those guys, we like get the biggest kick out of it because they're doing a lot of the same things we are. And we have been for the last few years in Pennsylvania. And it's so much fun. Like the group hunting, and like, that's what our fathers and our grandfathers used to do. And like bringing it back, so that's something, if you guys ever wanted to experience something on that front, I'm sure that is something that could be organized for sure.
Yeah. That'd be a blast.
Yep. Bring your Western packs and let's get on some side hills and shoot some legal bucks. That's all we care.
That's all we care
it'll be
about.
fun.
Yep. It's good stuff. Yeah, plug your channel real quick before we unplug here. I'm turning into a pumpkin. It's my bedtime.
Hey, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Just Brunk Outdoors. If you search it on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, you can get a hold of us there and just follow along. And like we always say, if you guys have success, share it with us. We always like to see it. So yeah, we appreciate you having us on here. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully people have enjoyed it and didn't care. Yeah, it's late for me too, but hopefully people didn't make fun of us too much for all of our tangents we went on. So great year. It's been a blast. So we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, I would love to. Hunter, do you have any closing words, thoughts on your?
I'll just end it with thanks for having me. It was good connecting, and get out there and shoot those fuzzy spikes.
Hell yeah, fuzzy spikes. They need loving too. Yeah, thank you, boys. And yeah, we will try to get you back on here because there's a lot of stuff we didn't talk about that I'd like to chat about. But I swear to God, no matter what I do, it's like, yeah, I think we'll just do an hour. And it's like, we could be here for 4. I like guys that talk, and we can talk. So cheers to that. Thanks, boys. Stay out of trouble. Wash your hands.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah. See you, boys.
Bye.